Thank you for notifying me that recording's in progress. I appreciate that it asks me for my consent every time. It's faithful.
It doesn't ask for shit. It just
It
tells
just
you what's
tells you,
happening.
yeah.
Zoom says recording in progress. What if you were deaf? I guess you'd have to look for the little recording symbol up on the top left there.
Well, it pops up with like a big pop-up in my face
Oh,
that
it does.
says,
It
yeah,
does.
then
On
I have
mine,
to,
it's not that big.
yeah, and then I have to click got it or something. There's like a couple of options where you can opt out of being
Oh,
recorded or you can opt in. So it's
I
a
didn't
little window
know. I
pop
didn't
up.
know what it looked like from your side. I always thought it was
Mm.
just telling you the same thing from my side.
Yeah, it just says recording started. Like this little lady's voice comes over my headset, and then a pop up comes up asking for my permission to be recorded.
Yeah, makes
So
sense. You never know
I've
when
never
somebody's going
said
to do that.
no. I thought about it. I thought maybe this isn't what I want to do, and maybe I should leave.
You're like,
I
well,
wonder what it would do if I said no. I wonder if it would just disconnect this whole call because it's the
no, it'd
recording's
probably
never
just
going to
record
start.
my side of it and it'd fucking ruin the damn podcast. It'd be ridiculous.
It'd
It's
be a
kind of like
great.
there's an episode where I fucked up and only recorded your visual side of the podcast.
Oh
So
no,
the whole thing
it's just me.
on YouTube is just you. And so you can't see me doing anything. You can hear both of us like normal,
Mhm.
but it's fucking silly. So I try not to mess with anything anymore. I just
Just don't
make
play
it
with the
worse.
settings. Nothing.
Nope. Podcast time. It's been a little while since it was Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving wasn't the last. I think that was the last one. So it's been a little over a week and a half or
It
sitch.
feels like it's
Sitch.
been so long.
Time just flies
Oh,
by. I don't. It doesn't feel like it was that long ago. But then you
well,
realize that Thanksgiving was, yeah, it was like a week and a half ago. Week from
yeah,
last
almost
Thursday.
2 weeks. Yeah. We're it's December 6th, 2021. We're
Right.
already into December. It's almost the end of the year. It's been another
1 week since
year
you
of
looked at me. Oh, sorry.
it's been 1 week since you looked at me. Cocked your head to the side and said
Instead of I'm sorry or I'm angry. I
said
don't remember the
I'm
words. I
angry.
actually spent a whole night memorizing all the lyrics of that song for just because I was bored.
Yeah.
And I don't remember any of them now.
Um, good.
It was a long time ago.
Not worthwhile. And yeah, we'll be coming up on a new year here pretty soon. It'll be 2022. We had another year of COVID. The mask mandates might be lifted and might not be. Who knows?
Oh,
I got
the
into
tension is palpable.
a debate with somebody at work about the whole mask thing. It was quite
Alarming.
no, it was almost a debate. It was almost a good conversation. It was he was very dogmatic and likened me to the Nazis in one point.
Oh, so was this like he's against the mask mandate and you were kind of trying to explain why it's still
Well,
good?
I was at work and
Mm-hmm.
I was like, "Hey, do you mind putting your mask on?" Because he had it
Oh,
under his chin,
oh, of course.
and
Chin diaper.
um, he was like, "You're the only person at these stores that's ever told me to do that," and I was like, "Well, I'm trying to be fair." We got into it. It was a long, mostly obnoxious conversation.
Was it at least civil or did he
Yeah,
like
it was
start?
civil.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it
Well,
was. That's why I kept engaging because he was like saying all the things that
mm-hmm.
I understand, and I tried to counter those things and try to put it all into context that we aren't in public and we aren't at your home, and there are different rules for different places that you go to, and I was like, you're arguing with an employee of a place who's just trying to like abide by the policies that are set, and your problem isn't with me. Your problem is with the governor or with uh yourself. I don't know, like all I did was ask you nicely to do something, and you're making it like I threatened you with a gun. And
Well,
he
what's interesting is he already sort of had it on. If he had it around his ears and just sitting on his chin, it's not like there was much more effort for him just to pull it up over his nose. I can understand if he just didn't have one at all and was like irate because he didn't want to go out to his vehicle to retrieve a mask if he even had one out there. But
well, and I could have gave him one. It wasn't about the inconvenience. It was about the don't tread on me
Mhm.
fucking argument. And
Mhm.
I get the argument. I just don't care.
Well,
Just
also,
isn't a, you're making a big deal out of
that's
a
yeah.
very minor inconvenience that I can get in trouble for not enforcing. And
Mhm.
I don't go that hard on it. So calm the fuck down.
Yeah. I don't
I'm
know.
not gonna like threaten you. I'm just asking you to do it so I don't lose my job. It's not
Exactly.
that fucking
That's why
complicated.
I always feel bad for employees at places because they're the ones that are have to like be verbally assaulted a lot of times when they are asking people to abide by the policies that their corporation or the governor has in place. And it's like, well, if you don't like it, then don't fucking go to a public place.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you.
When
It's not your
when
property when you're here. It's the company's
it's our
property and they have
property.
rules. So you either
Well,
abide
and
or leave.
I made the thing about like, well, you believe in the freedom to do what you want, so why don't you think we should have the freedom to do what we want as a business? And he was like, well, you should be, all businesses should be accommodating to all customers. And he's like, well, you wouldn't would should you not let black people in if you don't want to? And I was like, well, that's kind of a different situation because that's a superficial thing. And I believe in those rules. I think that anti-discrimination laws make a lot of sense. And this is a government mandate where I can get fined and in trouble if you don't do what the governor says. And that's different than a prejudice based on something superficial like race. And anyway, it was one-sided, and he was like, I just hope that you think about what you're doing, and I hope you blah blah blah. And I was like, okay, thanks, bud.
I hope you think about what you're doing.
At the end, I was just like, hey, what can I do for you? We're a business. Do you want to buy something? How's about you buy the thing and go?
Mhm.
Boom,
Move
done.
along,
What are
sir.
we doing here?
Yeah.
This isn't a freaking
You're
Twitter
not going to change the
thing.
world by debating with this a manager at a retail establishment. I mean, it's not going to change the wider world. Also, it's not even going to change your mind. So it's like, uh, so I hate arguing with people now. It's like you have a better chance of convincing a lot of people that God's not real than they need to wear a mask or that the vaccine's not going to give them cancer or whatever
You
belief they
don't
have.
have to come in here. You don't have to wear this thing.
Exactly.
Stop making it a fucking. I'm not putting a gun in your face. The government is putting a gun in my face, you asshole. I'm not the one coming up with the rule. No business was like, hey, I'd like to make things harder on myself. The
Yeah.
government said, you have to do this, or we will send in government officials and we will fine you and potentially hold you liable criminally. That's the rule.
Mhm.
I didn't do it. You fucking dick. It's
I
crazy.
just
They're just out of their mind. They're just like, well, you shouldn't comply. Okay, I shouldn't comply with government regulations and then not have a business and then what? Not be able to employ people and then not exist as a business and
well,
not
you know how that
provide
story
value
goes is your store would most likely get fined. You'd probably get fired because you're allowing this all to
potentially.
happen. And then the best you're gonna get out of the whole situation is a clap on the shoulder from fellow anti-mask believers. Oh, good job. Way to
Yeah.
stand up for your
Well, and
freedoms
what
while
happens
you're
if we get
applying for
fined?
food stamps or something.
If we get fined, then now we clamp down harder on the customers because we don't want to
Hmm.
get fined again. So whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't need to be yeah. Anyway, that was something that happened. Um
What do we
not our main issue. Um
No, but I can't wait for it all to be over just so we can stop having these conversations and listen to people
I
whine
know that's
about the mask. You know what I mean? It's like I don't even
I
care about the disease at this point. Can we just stop wearing masks so I can
I
stop listening to people
I
bitch about it?
wish the government would just allow people to make their own decisions. Just
Well,
allow us to fucking do that. It's
and I
fine.
agree, but I
Calm
think
down.
the hesitation is that when you allow people to make their own decisions, then the hospitals end up getting overrun with sick people because suddenly everybody's just if people didn't go to the hospital, and
Yeah.
because they got COVID because they were making poor decisions, they just stayed home and died or got better, then more power to you. But the problem is the hospitals get overwhelmed with
But
COVID patients, and
is there a correlation between masks and hospitals being less
Mhm.
overrun?
Yeah.
So then why do people not see those statistics? And
They just
I
don't
don't get
believe
why
them. That's what I mean. That's why I can't argue
do they
with people
not
about it anymore,
care?
because I
It's
don't
so weird.
understand. Yeah, because
If
I'm like, there's
if
literally facts and
people
statistics
are
that
like,
show.
they're like, these things do nothing, pointing at their masks, and it's like, well, it does something. Like,
Because
it
when they
stops the spittle from coming out of your mouth.
Yeah, because when they lifted the mask mandate, in June, it was like through June and part of July, we went from very low cases and almost no hospitalizations to they were fucking through the roof, and our hospitals were overwhelmed, and they had the fucking National Guard come in.
And has the
And then they had to
number
put the mask mandate
in
back
the
in. And then the moment that that happened, and along with encouragement for more people to get vaccinated, now we're trending way back down again.
Yeah.
It's like, I wish people could just look at that data and realize, like, cause and effect here, people. It's not that fucking difficult to understand. But I think there's so many people, their beliefs are just so strong that this is a hoax, or that the data's fake, or just whatever mumbo jumbo that they believe. Like I said, you have a better chance of convincing a lot of them God's not real, because I mean, it's like that level of like just pure faith and belief that they know what they know is correct, and to hell with the science and the facts.
Yeah,
So it's very difficult to
they're overconfident about their position and not willing to to counter themselves. But I guess as more people get vaccinated, hopefully the masks won't be as necessary.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's interesting. Anyway, I didn't want to get
It's
into COVID. It just was
derailed
kind of an
way off.
interesting. Yeah, I don't
I
usually
just
spend time trying to justify my position as an employee, and I tried and it kind of failed.
I just tell people, when they, like, if they come every once in a while, I'll have somebody come to the clinic that doesn't want to wear a mask. I'm like, well, this is voluntary clinic, so you don't have to be here. And if you don't want to comply with the hospital's rules and the state mandates, then you can leave. Like, nobody's forcing you to be here. You're here of your own
Exactly.
volition to seek behavioral health treatment, and we are willing to provide that for you, as long as you just have to wear a mask. That's it.
Put down the knife, put on
Yeah,
the
exactly.
mask, take
But
some
it's
pills.
very rare that I have
Yeah.
anybody with like a
It's
real problem with
yeah,
it. I
it's
think they
rare for us
expect it
too.
in a hospital setting. They're like, oh, I'm about to go to a medical setting, I'm probably gonna have to wear a mask. So
Yeah. Also, it's not fair if I like tell an old lady she has to wear a mask and I don't tell a young man because I'm afraid of the young man. It's not fair. And I'm a pussy if I pick and choose who I ask to wear masks. It's like either I ask everybody or I don't ask anybody.
yeah.
It doesn't make any sense to do it willy-nilly. And these people know that they can be intimidating if they just simply like resist you and say no or ask you to defend yourself.
Mhm.
And it's like, I don't want to call the cops. I really don't.
I
They're
know
not
you're
going to
making
come. You really don't. I don't have that much power. Please just wear it so I can fucking move on.
yeah.
You asshole. I don't want to deal with you. There's like 3 people in the store trying to rob us. Can you fucking just let me fucking be the boss here for a second and it's fine. Just chill the fuck out.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to make everybody happy. It's not all about you. Like, there's old ladies in here who are genuinely afraid of everything going on. And you just have to wear a mask while you're in here. Get out. It's fine. I actually had the opposite situation at I worked at another store for a day and to help out. And I had a lady who would not wear a mask. She was like, not going to do it. And I gave her a hard time about it. But I was a guest manager and I didn't want to like make this huge deal about it because I'm like, I'm just filling in. I don't run this place. I don't know what they've been doing. Maybe they're just letting everybody get away with it. And I don't want to freak everybody out. So, but what she did is when she came up to the counter, she demanded that we sanitize the counter, the credit card machine, the thing, the this and the that. And I was like, well, my associates think that it's unfair for you to ask them to sanitize everything, but you're not willing to wear a mask. And she just was like,
all over everything.
She couldn't believe I had the gall to even question her with her demands of contradictory sanitization. Like, you're not willing to wear a mask, so you're going to spit all over the air and you want me to clean everything up because you think I'm dirty. So I'm dirty, even though I'm wearing a mask because I have to. And then, so I defended 2 of my associates by confronting her. Both associates were like, I can't believe you did that. No one's ever told her anything. we just end up doing whatever she says. And I was like, why would you allow anyone to bully you? This is not a slave master scenario. This is a, a voluntary collaboration between two free parties.
Well, I
We
think a
work
lot of that
here,
stems
you
from
come
the
here.
idea that you're supposed to always be accommodating to, your customers, right? Like with excellent customer service. So you're supposed to, the customer's always right mentality and going above and
It's
beyond. So
wrong.
they probably just
It's not
do
accurate.
that because, that's what you're trained. But they don't really train people to maintain a sense of self-respect and fairness. It's more
It's
like
so
just kowtow
it's
to
so
whatever the
important.
customer
Yeah.
demands.
If your managers and leaders are not protecting your dignity and respect that you deserve as a human being in a workplace, then they are not good leaders. They're not good managers. And I think they need to be aware of that, because they're going to lose employees. They're going to end up with outbursts and violence and problems, because people will get sick of it and they will fight back. People don't want to be subjugated. And I found it really, really interesting that all I did was ask her questions. I was just like, oh, so like, what do you mean by sanitize everything? And like, like blah, blah, blah. I was just asking like, why won't you wear a mask if my associates don't feel comfortable ringing you up? We don't have to check you out. Like, I can refuse service to anybody if you're not going to abide by the rules of the store. And it was just, she never yelled or anything. So like always just was this conversation that
She
was
probably just didn't know what to do because you probably blindsided
she
her.
had no idea what to do. And I didn't know what to do because I didn't have power in the situation. I just was like responding naturally. But I didn't want to be like this like longtime customer that they've always just placated, and I like tell her to go home, and then she calls corporate and she's like, I can't believe this, who is this guy? And I was like, oh, that's Joe, he just does what he wants. And I'm here to like facilitate, I'm here to make things work, I'm here to solve problems. And I ended up capitulating, and I was like to the associates, you don't have to deal with her, I'll deal with her, that's my job as a manager, I will take this on. And I started sanitizing some things, and I kept asking like, what else do you want sanitized? Like, I was being facetious and serious at the same time, because it was ridiculous. It was like, do you want me to sanitize my face, you psycho? And then she was very particular about how I put things in bags. And she thought that I rang her up twice. She was like, oh, are you charging me twice? Are you charging me twice? And I was like, no, the receipt didn't come out. It's not done yet. We need to run your card again. Nothing ever happened. She was an insane person who projects all of that on everyone else. And then because people are afraid, they just go, whatever you need, whatever you need. And it's like, that's not how it works. I'll accommodate you as far as I find it to be appropriate. And that's up to me. And you don't get to just demand that I like run your card a certain way, or that I do this or that, or blah, blah, blah. Like, there's a limit to how much I'm willing to do for somebody who's being rude. You know, if you're nice and you're like, oh, I know it's weird and I'm the only person in the whole world who does it, but I'd really appreciate if you took a minute to sanitize the stuff that I'm going to touch. And it's like, but you're touching all of these bags of like this grocery products that other people could have touched and been near. And if they're not wearing a mask, they're spitting all over the air near those products. What is your concept of germs? You're an insane person. That was a fun one too.
Yeah, that's when I listen to utility stories, it just makes me appreciate the fact that I finally escaped retail.
I know,
because it's like I can relate to everything you're saying. Because I briefly worked in GameStop like part time for some holiday cash last holiday season, right? In the middle of the pandemic, and it fucking sucked. I was only there for like 3 or 4 months. I'm like, I'm fucking
sure
done. I hate this place.
Getting out of it and then get back in, it's like, what are these people doing? I can't believe
I was just doing it because I was like, oh, they like need some part-time help. I'm friends with the store manager. Like, I'll come. Like, I worked at GameStop for like 5 years. Like, I'll come work a holiday season or whatever.
Help out, make some money.
And I was there for like 3. I think I went from August to November, and I was done. And the pandemic was like getting worse, and I was like, it's probably not a good idea for me to be here while also working in a healthcare setting full time, because I'm out here exposing myself to all these fucking strangers in the mall. And so I just ended up leaving. But yeah, it was not a good time.
Yeah, I think I've become somewhat institutionalized. I don't know how to live without the stress. I don't know how to live without it, man. I fucking can't go back. I can't get into normal. I can't get into Gen Pop. I'm so used to isolation.
It's like when you hear a customer say, "I need to speak to your manager," you're like,
Oh yes, there it is.
There's the good stuff. And then you just like walk up.
Bitch. You want to talk to a manager? I fucking love this shit. I get off on this. You got a problem? And she's like, I just wanted to tell you that your associate did a really good job, but now I'm afraid. That's right, you're afraid. Fuck you. Don't ever call for managers.
Unless it's some bad news.
Yeah.
Don't tell me good things. I don't give a fuck about that.
Yeah, what the fuck you think I'm gonna do about that? Same shit I do about bad shit. Yeah, what do you think I'm gonna fucking thank him and shake his hand? I don't give a fuck. That fucking slave over there. That fucking little bitch. That's how I treat my employees. I'm like, I'll fucking protect you and shit, but like you're a bitch.
I'll protect you from everybody
Yeah.
but me.
Yeah. I'm the only one who gets to tell my bitches what to do over here.
You're
You
like a
fucking
retail
bitch.
pimp.
Yeah, that's what I need to be, a retail pimp. I just like my associate like speaks and I just look at him like, shut the fuck up. I'm talking. I don't know why I'm a Mexican pimp, but it's fun. I didn't tell you could speak to the fucking customer, did I? You just ring shit up.
I think people be equally confused as to why you're speaking with that accent.
Yeah, I want to do
You're a
that.
short little bearded white man.
Yeah. Grew up in the fucking ghetto, fucker. You don't know where the fuck I'm from. You ever heard an Asian guy speak fucking English? It's like that, but like different.
You cock your head back
Yeah.
the whole time. Okay.
Like, cause kind of I'm confused about that sentence too.
Gotta keep my neck
Or
stretched
like,
out.
have you ever seen like a real white guy speak like real good Chinese? It's crazy. It's like, what?
So confusing that you
Doesn't make
you start
sense.
to like forget your sexual preferences. That's how confusing it is if you see a white man speaking perfectly fluent Chinese. It's
You
like,
just go gay.
I
all of
might be a
sudden.
homosexual now. I'm so confused. Like,
Everything
this
is
is blowing my
upside down.
mind wide open. I have no idea what's happening anymore.
Everything's upside down now.
God is real.
Oh my God, God is real now. How else could this be possible? Okay, so. To
the untrained ear, that sounded perfectly fluent. You might be saying something horrifying. You gotta be careful.
I doubt it. I'm probably saying nice.
You do
shit.
have listeners in other countries, so they might be preparing to bomb some
Attack?
establishment based off of your chanting
Like
in
where?
gibberish language. I don't know.
Oh no, he's so pissed off. Fuck you, guy. Oh no, fucking fleeting thought at it again. It's so fucking rude. Oh no. Why do
The
I
most
even listen?
racist
Why the-
podcast in the world.
Why do I? Wow. I bet there's some more racist one out there, and we should find it and do a
Oh, yeah, sure.
collaboration.
Collabo.
Oh my God. We're trying to increase our numbers of like Aryans over here. Jesus Christ. Everything's racist.
It is these days. You gotta.
Everything is racism.
I don't even speak half the time in public because I second guess myself so much that it just shuts down all
You're
my
just like,
thoughts. I can't do it.
That's why I end up just talking like a vato because it's so
Yeah.
scary. People don't know
Yeah.
what to do. I can't tell if he's racist.
Well, there's some pretty pale Hispanic people, so they don't really. I mean, how are they gonna know for sure that you don't have like a Hispanic
true.
mother? They have no idea. No, like how
Who
would they
talks
know
like that?
that? Maybe
Like,
how
that's
your
where I
mom
got it
talked.
from.
Your mom
but I
grew up
don't
in the Mexican ghetto, and
I
that's
don't
just
know
how she
any-
spoke to you.
I don't think
Yeah.
real Mexicans sound like that. I think it's only like California.
It's like
like, born
Hollywood
and raised.
Mexicans
Yeah,
that sound like
exactly.
that. Yeah.
It's not like a real Mexican accent. It's just
Yeah, I don't
from,
think I've ever met a Hispanic
Training
person
Day.
that speaks that way. It's
I
always like a
haven't.
caricature in a comedy film.
I think they do. I think it's a Southern California accent.
Maybe, yeah.
I think it's just like a
It's not
certain.
even Mexican. It's just Southern California.
Yeah, Latin accent. It's
Might
only.
be.
It's actually just happens when you button the very top button of a button.
Yeah, I think it's just the way it squeezes your larynx.
Mhm.
Like your words have to come out that way.
They're like, "Donde
They can't
está la
form.
bibi? Oh fucker!"
Yeah, I just
Right
you're
when you
trying to
hit that
breathe
button.
and exhale at the same
Everything
time.
gets a little bit lower and fucking scarier.
Mhm.
I don't know why it's scary. It just
I think it's
sounds
just because the association with
the,
Mexican gangsters. Really, I mean,
Yeah.
they will have only their top button buttoned.
Which
Usually
is
a
scary.
beanie, like a tattoo of like a something on their cheek here under the eye, and
like a bunny rabbit.
9mm tucked into the front of their pants that they like swoosh back their unbuttoned part
Yeah.
of their shirt
So
to
they
reveal.
Yep.
So that's why. I mean, that's everything that runs through my head when I hear that accent,
That's
and then I start feeling the fear.
like even over the podcast, like you're afraid. I can
Yeah.
tell. Cowering. You just peed your pants. I can smell it from here.
That's how potent it is. That's how scared I was, man. That piss is coming through the internet.
That's weird. I like it. Fucking like it.
That's the weird part. Not that you can smell it, but that you like it.
I smelled your fear, man. Smell it from over here.
It's my territory. You can smell it from over there.
Yeah, you own that seat now.
I own this fucking chair in this office space. Pissed all over it.
Because you're a dog.
In fear.
Fear the Walking Dead.
No, don't do that.
No, I don't want to watch that show.
Yeah, just let it go. Yeah, I'm surprised you're still watching the normal OG show.
I am too. What's wrong with me? I like my soap operas. I like my male soaps.
It is kind of a male soap opera, actually, now that you mention it.
It is. That's exactly what it is. It's all just about drama, just relational drama. Nobody gets along, even though they're like very limited on resources, and people are resources. They're like, I don't know, what should we do? Like fight everybody? Fucking die?
It's funny because you know how we always point out how irrational it is, like right in real world ending situations. I mean, you'd have some people that would sort of be aggressive and selfish, but I feel like for the most part, people would like come together to survive. And so I didn't even finish the book because it was so boring, but I started reading this book called The Last Tribe, and it's about a pandemic that kills like most of the population in the world. And it follows this one family that's immune for, whatever reason. Maybe it's revealed later in the story. I didn't finish it, but it's this particular family. And like the whole book is them just being really smart and just making really rational decisions. Like they start collecting rainwater right away because they're like, oh, like the water's probably going to shut down with all these people dying, and they're starting to quarantine the cities. And like as I'm reading it, I'm like, this is almost more like a survival manual. It's not very exciting. There's like not very any drama because nobody's doing anything dumb. Like everybody's just being very smart. They're working together. They're like coming up with all these plans, like all this. And I'm like, this is too smart. And then you suddenly realize that's why shows like The Walking Dead exist, because you need people to make stupid decisions. To, like there's got to be drama to make it exciting.
Yeah, it wouldn't work if
like nothing is exciting is happening. You're just like, okay, well,
there are like two things. There are two things in The Walking Dead that would have solved all their problems: a trench and spears.
Yeah,
no problems.
Sure.
They would have been able to live forever.
Yep.
Oh no, no one's died around here. Yeah, we just used medieval fortress fucking concepts, and we're fine.
Easy.
Yeah.
We don't even use guns because the noise draws them.
They're really slow, and we just kill them. It's easy.
We just duct tape kitchen knives to the end of really big sticks, and
it's real easy. Yeah, it's so hard. It reminds me of a book that I did a review on, and then I had a podcast roundtable with my brother and Chris about it, and it was called Odd Billy Todd, and it's a post-apocalyptic book, and it's about a guy named Todd he's kind of autistic, and he has like panic attacks every once in a while, but he just is very like survival oriented, and he just like leads this group of people, and everything he does is so smart, and so he thinks ahead. They come up with like ways to deal with other people, and like ways to hide, and ways to get food, and generate electricity, and they just do really, really well because he just doesn't fuck around, and he just solves all the problems. And it's actually a really good book. It's very, like you said, it's very practical. It's not there's not a lot of drama in it other than like surviving and like bad guy, other bad people in the world. But it's very like survival manual type.
Yeah, I think I read like a third of that book, and I don't know, I might go back and try to like reread it or finish it.
Maybe the last bit of it is like really, really good.
Well, because there's like not really an adversarial component, because like almost everybody's dead, so it's like they're like preparing for like the potential of somebody trying to, steal their shit or whatever, but there's like nobody because everybody's
Yeah.
fucking dead. So
It's always weird in those scenarios where people are like the people who lived are struggling to find resources, because if everyone died, there'd be endless resources.
well, and that's what they talk about in the book is there's just canned goods fucking everywhere because like
Canned goods last for like 30 years.
yeah, they like end up surviving in the beginning for like months at their house by just scavenging their neighbors' houses because
Yeah.
everybody had, like they were in a pretty, I think it was like upper middle class kind of neighborhood. And so most of them had stocked kitchens. So they start by eating the perishables first because, they're only good
Yeah.
for so long. And then they save all the canned stuff for later on
Like
down the
if you
road.
look at the amount of canned goods in one supermarket store,
It's a lot.
like
Yeah.
Albertsons, if you're a group of 5, that would last you a year,
Mhm.
all of that food, and you have endless supermarkets in a big city. Like
Yeah.
you'd never run out of canned goods unless other things happen. Like you'd always have food.
Mhm.
It's so funny how they're just struggling to find food and water, but like you can get food and water in a society like ours if everyone died. Now, if all
Yeah.
that stuff was part of the problem, like fires, that would be a totally like in the road, like it's all nuclear waste. You can't
Mhm.
just eat whatever. You have to figure it
See, in
out.
the road, I always assumed it was a volcano that erupted
Oh, I thought it was nuclear winter
because
from war.
they
never
never
say
like
it.
he never explicitly says, but the way I always interpret it as because I actually I read the book and then I listened to the audiobook a couple months ago, and as I was listening I'm like, I did from the way that it's talked about, I feel like a major volcano erupted, and that's what.
But then
They
they
talk
would
about
have had,
fire in the sky and all the
yeah,
ash, and there's no
but that wouldn't,
radiation sickness like that's brought up at all.
yeah, but I don't think
And
there's a
so,
volcano potential that would do that to the earth. I think it
but
might
you don't know if it's
it
the
would put
earth
ash
though.
over the earth, but it wouldn't create fires all over the earth,
Mhm.
right? Because the fires would only come from the explosion, right? They wouldn't travel all over the earth and then,
No,
you know what I'm
no, it's
saying?
more
Like
like the ash would
the
kind
ash
of
would cover
almost like
stuff,
a nuclear winter
but
type effect.
the ash wouldn't stop there being foodstuffs in buildings.
But I also don't think that they really explicitly say in the novel like how far reaching it is. It's obviously takes place in the United States, but it could. I mean, I don't think they ever
Yeah,
say like,
they
oh,
don't, but
China is all fucked too or something.
it's assumed that no one's coming to help them. And if
Yeah.
China was okay and we weren't, they would come at least to exploit us. Like they
Mhm.
would do something. Like
Yeah.
they would have to, they would do something. They would bring people over there even just to report on it, or something. I don't know. I thought in the road everything was on fire because of a nuclear situation that created explosions all over everywhere.
Mhm.
Like it blew up places, which also like caused chain reactions to blow up other
Yeah.
places. But I
I
could be
just
wrong.
like, yeah, the only reason I think the biggest reason why I thought it was maybe a volcano was that just like the ash, the way he describes it, and then that there's no radiation mentioned anywhere. Like, oh, we can't, you got there's like
That
no
is true
radiation in the
because
novel.
the
So
radiation would have been a major problem. But
yeah,
I thought that the people who survived were the people who were um, resilient to that type of radiation, or they had like somehow made it past a radiation period,
mhm.
right, by being in bunkers or
Yeah,
something.
because like radiation, like I remember researching this when I was writing The World Carried On because I was trying to figure out a realistic timeline for like how long it
How
would take the
long?
Earth
Yeah.
to recover from nuclear, and it's based off of what type of like where the nuclear missile, what type it was, and like where it detonated. Because they said if it detonates in the air, it dissipates faster, but if the missiles are striking the ground, then the radiation actually sticks around for like potentially hundreds of years because
Yeah.
it's like in the soil. And whereas if it explodes in the sky, it's it like dissipates a lot faster out of the atmosphere.
The radiation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know with like Chernobyl, it's all in the ground
Mhm.
because it sunk in.
Mhm.
So it's going to be there for fucking long ass
Yeah,
time.
that
But it's
place will
already starting
never-
to regrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
With
the Earth
mutations.
is very resilient, so it'll life finds a way.
Yeah. Well, and
Finds its way.
radiation isn't an unnatural phenomenon.
Mhm.
The sun is pulverizing
Radioactive.
us with it all the time.
Yeah. Skin cancer.
I think we need more of it, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready for the sun to go supernova and just
Right,
wipe us all out.
Oh,
I'm
I'm
ready.
excited. And that's why I keep hanging out by X-ray machines and going in airplanes needlessly. just more
Just cruising
radiation.
through the thing.
Yeah, I want to kill my sperm cells or
Mm.
mutate them into superhumans, like to produce superhumans.
I'm glad you got a plan. That sounds
I
like
don't want the
a solid
superhumans to,
plan.
yeah. It if you don't have a plan, you can't make it work.
Hmm.
You got to work that plan.
That's like a long term. You're like, I'm trying to create radioactive resistant children for the inevitable nuclear apocalypse so they can survive by
Yep.
constantly going through X-ray machines to
Mhm,
mutate your sperm, and then
mhm.
it does create these children that have a sort of an immunity
High
to.
tolerance. Yeah.
Yeah. There's
That's
a
the
great
goal.
novel that actually it's post-apocalyptic. You should read at some point called Swan Song, and it's about. It actually came out a little bit after The Stand came out, so they're kind of similar books by two different authors, but it follows a band of people after a nuclear war, and that book explores how there are certain people that do actually have immunity and resistance to radiation. So it explains why these characters are able to function in the world so soon after a nuclear attack. It's very good novel, actually. I enjoy it more than The Stand.
Nice. The Stand. Yeah, I think that's the one you recommended, and I need to check that out.
The
Isn't it
Stand,
really
yeah,
long?
by Stephen King. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
because I listened to the audiobook this year because it was like I don't want to read this book. It's way too fucking long. And so I just listened to the audiobook, and the audiobook was like almost 46 hours.
Ugh.
It was really, it's a long
It's
ass
like a
fucking story.
long work week.
I mean, it's good, but it's long.
Yeah.
It's too long almost.
Speaking of long, we have a new email address for people to send in their insanity. They can ask us questions, they can tell us their problems, and we can solve those
Give them advice,
problems.
solve their
I think we
problems.
can. I think we can do it.
This podcast is going to evolve into like one of those columns where people write in like, "Dear so and so, my
Yeah,
boyfriend keeps sleeping with his mom, and I don't know what I should do."
such
And
fodder for comedy, I think. So somebody did email us.
oh, really? Fuck,
Yeah.
that's fast. You didn't
Yes.
even. Did you just tell somebody on the street and they're like, "Hell yeah"?
No, I posted it all over the fucking internet.
Oh,
I
don't
have
have
this weird
social
things
media
called
accounts anymore.
Instagram and
So.
Facebook and
Oh,
Twitter
I don't have
that
any
you
of them
don't
anymore.
engage with.
I ripped the band-aid off.
I
I'm
know.
done with all
I
of it.
tried to tag you in a freaking Instagram and you weren't there anymore. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the one thing that a aspiring creative really should do is not be on the internet to sell their shit
I've
or
had
podcasts.
like no success with it over the last however many years. So I was like, for my own mental health, I'm just going to bow out and disconnect from all this
Sure.
nonsense.
Just all word of mouth for
Mm-hmm.
Channing.
Mm-hmm. In this podcast, people can listen. They'll know when the books go on sale.
They just don't know when the podcast is out, unless they're on my stuff. Anyway, so we did get a email. It's going to be anonymous, so I'm just going to call him what should
X.
Mr. J. We'll say Mr. J.
Mr.
Okay?
J. All right.
Mr. J, this is his question.
Okay. Oh boy.
And yeah, be prepared.
I'm not prepared because I don't know what the question is. So let's hear it.
The question is, does
Our
a nice
inaugural item.
oh you motherfucker. Does a nice penis make for a more enjoyable porn watching experience? This is definitely from somebody I know.
I'm gonna say yes, only because like
Okay.
it depends on like if the penis is like okay, it's distracting if the penis is like all fucked up because there was one porn I watched where like the guy's dick like hooked down like this, and
That's
so
distracting.
it seemed like when he was having sex, he was having to come at it at an angle to sort of slide in, and then all I could think about was that sucks for that guy. He like obviously was sleeping on his penis weird a lot as a kid or something, or was rubbing himself too hard against objects. And also, I'm just like, I feel like the woman's really uncomfortable because it seems like it's kind of hooking into her butthole.
Oh, it's
I don't
going
know,
the
like,
other way.
It was so. I had so many thoughts and like I had to switch to.
Did you draw a diagram?
No.
You should draw a diagram.
But so I mean, it's
so penis does matter in the porn.
But
so,
I feel like it's only if it's like really weird. You know, if it's like bent at like a weird angle or. I've never. Most penises seem pretty safe from the videos I've seen. They all look pretty
safe. They look anything but
they just
safe.
Look like normal fucking penises.
They do
like
look normal.
I mean, you've seen one dick, you've seen most, so they're not drastically different. But Yeah, if it's fucking weird, I just get distracted by it. I'm like, ugh, that guy should like go to a doctor and see if there's some way that they can sort of help straighten that out. Like get like a little brace
A
for it or something,
splint.
or a splint. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Splint that poor thing.
When I
Try to
read it,
straighten it out.
I thought what they meant was your penis. So
Oh,
like, does my penis matter while I'm watching porn? And that's what I thought they meant. I don't know why I thought that, but obviously I'm narcissistic. So anytime somebody brings up something, I think it's about me.
of
Um,
course, yeah.
and I don't think it matters that much. And I don't think my penis is very nice. It's very mean. It's fucking angry. It gets red.
Points and it's
And
very
it's, yeah,
veiny.
it's very
Seems like it's always on
aggressive.
the verge of a coronary.
Yeah, and it just screams. But yeah, it's a funny question. I'll give you that. Old Mr. J with your fucking questions. But we do have an email. It's fleetingthoughtspodcast@gmail.com if you want to email us. This is the first time we've been bold enough to allow our listeners to email us directly, although they could have easily contacted us through the many fucking social media outpoints and website and fucking, which they don't do, but maybe they'll do this. So and I do think it'd be fun if they ask us like personal problems. I think it'd be fucking super fun to try to help
I
them.
assume Mr. J is concerned about his own penis and just wants to
No,
know
I think he
from
just
the
wants
male
to,
perspective if a weird penis is off-putting.
I think he just wants us to admit that we're gay and
Oh,
we
okay.
look at dicks in porn, and that's an important aspect.
I felt like that would be the cop-out answer, right? Like, oh, I'm not really looking at the penis. It's like,
Exactly.
it's hard not
It's a
to. The
test.
fucking penis is
It's a
right there,
test.
just ramming the vagina as you're
I
watching
know.
it. It's pretty hard not to notice the penis.
A porn with no penis is fucking boring. You got to have that dick in there making it work.
I used to here's a fun little confession. So when I first started watching porn in my formative years of, I think 14 is about when I started watching
Your
it.
foreskin emittive.
I actually used to prefer the softcore porn that you'd like watch on like
Sure.
Skinamax, because I didn't want to see penises, because I think I was uncomfortable with myself, like you don't want to, you would feel gay as a young man seeing another naked man. And so when you watch like the softcore porn, there's not really much penis and there you don't see any penetration. It's usually just a naked woman grinding up on a dude. So that was how I started. And then, as you just learn to become comfortable with yourself, I graduated to real porn.
Now the more dicks, the better.
Yeah, I usually go for the
Just
threesomes where there's
straight up
dudes.
butt
Yeah.
cake. Butt cake. I don't. Yeah. I don't. I couldn't tell you any penis from another penis. I have no
I
idea.
couldn't either, yeah.
They're all the same dick. Like I could tell you without looking at the faces, I can tell you just from the bodies, like all the major porn stars. I don't know any of their names, but like I know who they are. Like I've seen them, right? Because I can just see their body. I've seen it 1,000 times. I can tell you, like I like that one.
Be not enough
But
to memorize
if I
their
saw a
names.
dick, I wouldn't have any idea who the fuck that is. Well, I try to remember their names, but they're so fucking inconsequential. It's
It's not even their real name. It's
like no,
ridiculous.
it's like naming cups. Like why would I do that? I just use them.
That's a great headline. Racist podcast claims that porn stars are no different than cups and aren't worth remembering.
It's like naming your vacuum cleaner. Like, why would I possibly do that? I'm not a fucking psycho.
The only thing I can't handle with men in porn is if they make a lot of noise. That's distracting.
Oh,
like
fuck all
like,
that. I don't like.
Yeah,
I don't like the
like
talking.
if he starts talking,
yeah,
or making really loud grunts, I'm like, no, I'm out, dude.
her noises are the only ones that matter.
Yep.
She's got to make the good noises. He just needs to
Shut
produce those noises through his penetrations.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah, I'm glad that seems like a pretty universal thing. Like, I feel like I'm super boring and normal when it comes to my porn.
Oh, I know I am. I don't watch
Like,
anything like outlandish. It's pretty.
They always talk
standard.
about how like if you start watching porn, you have to like keep increasing the strangeness of the porn or to get off. And that's not. I don't find that true at all.
Mm-mm.
Like I mean I like variety and I like novelty, like new people, but I don't need it to be like if that was true by now it would be only murder porn, like because there's only I mean I've seen porn for
it for you
how many years. And if it
Mhm.
always had to increase or I couldn't get off, then it would be in space or something, and it would have to be like millions of dollars because it would just make no sense. I
I think the
still
only thing,
enjoy, some fairly straightforward,
yeah, I'm the same way. I don't
porn.
need anything. I also like a little bit of story in mind. Like if there's like a setup, very brief. It doesn't need to be, I don't know. It creates like a realistic setting
Yeah.
sometimes.
Sometimes I'm discriminate just based on like the outfit she's wearing. I'm like, oh, that's fucking cute. I want to fucking watch her take that off.
Is it the schoolgirl
It's
ones or the
almost
naughty
always
nurses?
schoolgirl.
Yeah.
If they got pigtails and a schoolgirl outfit, I'm probably watching it.
I think the only
That's
thing porn
that's a
has
weird one.
like ruined is that it creates definitely a lot of unrealistic expectations for your own personal sex life because the things that they're setting up and filming are not particularly what you would be doing in real life.
Well, and the lights are too bright for real
Yeah.
life.
Well, and they do things at like weird fucking angles to get like the
Yeah,
maximum
for
exposure. And
sure.
so it's just like some of the positions you see, you're like, oh, let's try that. And you're like, this is really uncomfortable. Why the fuck
Yeah.
did they do this for
Yeah.
five
It's
minutes?
just so you can see the
Yeah.
balls slamming against the labia or whatever,
Yeah.
the weird angles they're going for there. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a whole thing. Anyway,
Anyway.
thanks for your
Well,
question.
great question. Yeah,
Yeah.
that spiraled.
So let's move on to our serious topic if we want. I don't know. We've already 45 minutes in, but we were trying to come up with like a topic and
To ground the episode before it really just can. I mean, I feel like if we don't
sorry.
have a topic, they spiral, and I never know where they're gonna end up.
I don't
Nobody
either, but
knows.
at least it ends up. Um, I mean, the standards are low, obviously.
Right.
But yeah, well, so we were thinking about it, and the place that I work at is next to a church, and in between the church and the place I work at is a little plot of land that is owned by either the city or the state or something like that. And that particular little spot, I heard the other day, is going to be turned into a homeless camp, an official place for them to go hang out and have their tents that somehow they bought slash
Most of them don't
didn't
buy them.
buy.
They're given the tents.
I know. I was watching for about an hour. I watched just tons of YouTube clips of news reports from local Portland news, and it was all about the homelessness problem and like different aspects and different places and how it's just gone out of control in the last couple of years. And a lot of it has to do with COVID because they changed the way that they go out and clean up camps since COVID. They just were like, we can't go out there. And so all of these camps proliferated and just hung out for just way longer than they normally would have. Normally, they would have been cleaning up camps throughout the year, and they'd be getting those people into designated places to help them and shelter them and get them into a different place, and then they would move, or they're always moving around anyway. So I was watching these little clips, and I don't know, it just gave me a perspective on the fact that it's a huge governmental issue that the government around here in Portland just really doesn't deal with very well. And the business owners in the areas are very angry about it, and they have to, they get yelled at and they have to deal with all this crime and stuff. So it's an interesting issue. I was gonna ask, like why do people, if all they're doing is camping, right, and they get handouts, then why are people so mad? Like, I mean, I know that it looks bad, but other than that, like, why do people get so mad?
Well,
And
I
I
feel like
think, yeah,
the big part of that is you said, like, aesthetically it looks bad. If you have like a somewhat nice neighborhood and then across the street's this big homeless camp, it's definitely not appealing to the eye. And I feel like people tend to feel unsafe when there's a lot of homeless around, I mean, whether it's justified or not, I don't know. But the big problem that I think that people have and what I have is just the mess that they typically leave behind when they leave. Like if they pack up and move on to another place or whatever, they just leave trash all over the place. They and like in Eugene has a real problem with homelessness as well, especially in like down the downtown Eugene area, kind of near the U of O campus, near where I work. And you know, they're out there and they're digging through everybody's garbages every day, and they just leave the garbage all over the ground and all over the sidewalk. Like, you know, trash bags are all ripped open as they were digging around for stuff. And it's like I've never really had a problem with like the homeless people. Like people end up homeless for all kinds of reasons, and sometimes it's out of their control, and sometimes it is within their power to change their lives. But it's like, I mean, I remember this neighborhood we used to live in Springfield. We would have this homeless guy who would cruise around and just dig all of like any soda cans or bottles out, and just to go cash in himself. And he was like, and then there was one morning that I came out to leave for work, and he's like literally at the end of my driveway digging through my recycling, and then he stops and asks me if it was okay he was doing it, and I was like, well, you're already doing it. I mean, it seems kind of weird to be asking me now. I was like, honestly, I don't care, just please don't leave a mess all over my yard and in my driveway. That's all I care about. Like, I'm not using those cans. I'm not going to go recycle those cans. So if you can get some use out of them and they can get you some food or a fucking another 40, who knows, whatever, you know, you need the money for. um but I think that's like the biggest issue is exactly this picture that you've pulled up. It's that kind of shit. It's all over the fucking place in Eugene. When I'm out walking around on my my breaks and stuff at work, I see this all the time. I walk by it all the time. Like all the dumpsters, all the people's personal garbage cans, they're open, and then the trash is just everywhere. And I think that, I mean, for me, like that's the biggest thing that like annoys me is it's like, I get it, your life's not awesome, but you shouldn't be trashing it because you're not doing yourself any favors. You're not going to win people over by leaving these giant messes behind everywhere. It's just making people hate you even more. Because I mean, at the end of the day, homeless people are still, they're still people. A lot of them honestly have behavioral health issues that are unaddressed, and they're self-medicating usually with illegal street drugs because they don't have a way to get a hold of actual psychiatric medication to help them with their problems. At least that's like a lot of clientele that we see in our clinic. You know, we have a decent number of homeless people coming through, and a lot of them are struggling with behavioral health issues that keep them from being able to live a normal life. And then they found a way to self-medicate with the worst kinds of things that you can self-medicate with, and that obviously just further derails your life. um, yeah.
Yeah. Um, I think I was watching a video about Marine Drive, and one of the things that homeless camps have are lots of cars and RVs, and they break them down and they become abandoned, or they strip them of parts. And part of that process also allows for chemicals to go into the ground and into the nearby areas, which is really bad. They also have to piss and shit, and who knows where they're doing that. That's really bad. So there's actually a real sanitation slash disease control element to this that I think is very rational to be alarmed by, especially if you live near that area, if you have kids near that area. There's also, I mean, I see needles all the time, you know, broken off needles. I've had to clean them up because I think that's really scary. A lot of people doing you know, self-medicating with their own needles for this or that, and of course, you know, doing drugs with the needles as well. So that's like a practical issue that I think that if they're on public land, and it's the government's responsibility um, to maintain that land on our behalf, and they don't do it, then they're not doing their job. And I think that the public should be able to address that issue directly with those government officials. I found out, I was looking at one of those clips, and they were talking about how Portland is ran by a very wide group of disparate commissioners. Instead of a very streamlined government system, there are lots of commissioners who run different departments, who run different districts, who run different areas, and they don't communicate with each other, and they don't collaborate with each other, and they shove the responsibility onto someone else. Like they'll be like, well, that's the ODOT's problem, or that's the Portland blah 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 problem, or that's the this bureau's problem. And so people are trying to like contact the right people to have an issue dealt with, like, hey, these people are spilling over into our neighborhood and we're having increased carjackings and needles on the ground. And they don't, nobody does anything because the people don't take responsibility who are in the government. And there are I one of the things that they said in the news was that there's actually tons and tons of money available to create centers where these people can go, and they can be they can stay temporarily and help clean up things and work toward getting jobs and work toward getting assistance and getting permanent housing. But Portland government people don't agree to implement these more tested and pragmatic approaches that have worked in other cities. So they're like kind of these big tent areas that are administrated, and people can live there temporarily while they're trying to transition, like a transition house, like a,
Mhm.
like a way to get them off the street and into a more stable environment that is funded by government programs. And it's like, if we have all this money available and we're paying taxes for the government to solve these problems, but they're not doing it because of red tape and all of these anti-responsibility actions, then I think that's a failure of the system to administrate any type of public good, if it's in the public good to deal with that. Um, there's definitely a massive problem with petty crime and violent crime and abuse that occurs among these populations that spills out into the regular neighborhoods as well. Like they're always stealing from each other because none of them have locked
Mhm.
doors, and they're always stealing from, and then there's petty theft at every store, in the areas of Portland that have these large groups of people. um, like where I work, it's just petty theft constantly, people stealing for to trade, and people stealing for just the day-to-day use items, like toothpaste and shit, which makes it more expensive for businesses, and it makes it hard for employees to feel safe and all that, especially like downtown Portland. Uh, like there's genuine like harassment and violence that occurs for employees down there as well. So businesses can't really deal with it without it costing them a lot. Um, but watching these news clips made me kind of more hopeful, weirdly, because while the problem is massive, the problem wasn't that massive a couple years ago, and that's because they actually went out and did more cleanups. Like if people move on or something and leave all their shit there, they would clean it up, and they're just not doing it at that rate during COVID. And I think that is uh, like picking one bad thing over another. Like, well, it's bad if we go out there because of COVID, but the result of that is another really bad thing that could cost, that's also bad hygienically and for public safety. So it's like, is COVID worse than the homeless problem? And it probably is. Really, if you think about it, well, I don't know, because of the cost on to businesses and to people's morale and belief in the city. It costs the city a lot of money if these businesses leave and people move out and stuff. So
Mhm.
but because for some reason people are moving to Portland from other states, I guess there's not a huge problem if people move out of Portland, because people are still moving to Portland at record rates, because Portland has always been growing for the last years. um it's interesting because it's like we're going to have homeless people. There's going to be all these, people at the very bottom of the totem pole.
Hmm.
And yeah, like there's not a great solution other than to spend money to like take care of them like children.
That's pretty much, yeah. It's, I mean,
I
because
don't know
if
what
you,
else you can do other than killing them, right?
yeah.
Which that's a harsh society that just,
Hmm.
kills people who are downtrodden. And or shunning them, getting them out of the city. You could do that, and then they'd be in the fucking forests or something, living
Yeah.
like fucking, the Lord of the Flies or something, and like murdering people as they enter the forest and eating people. I don't know what happens when you uh, dispel them into the outer regions. Then they end up in suburbia, and I don't know what, then they
Yeah.
just get killed by the suburban
Well,
people
I
who
think the
live there.
tricky
Like,
thing
what do you
is
do?
too, is it's like you'd have to, I mean, you obviously have to find the root cause of why so many people are homeless, right? And try to combat that. It's, at
But
the
there's no
very
root
beginning
cause. Yeah,
stage.
there's
I mean,
there's
it's
so
like,
many different reasons why
there's, yeah,
people
there's
end up
so many
homeless.
different reasons. So it's like when you have a problem as rampant as it is, it's like, what do you even do? And I think sometimes, but well, I mean, at least in Portland, it sounds like they have some funds that they're not using for some reason. But I think a lot of places that, like, taxpayers don't want to pay taxes to help homeless people. Generally speaking, they want, better infrastructure. They want their roads repaved. They want, whatever fucking shit that they want with their tax money to go to. I imagine most people, if they had to rank, what they want their tax money to go to, I feel like homeless shelters or warming centers or, halfway houses, whatever, that stuff's probably pretty low for a lot of, I mean, there's people bleeding hearts out there that would want to prioritize that, I'm sure. But I think most people are like, no, I don't want my tax money that I'm working for to go towards helping somebody just continue to be homeless. Um,
Yeah. It's like we put free will on people and we say, well, you could go work. But a lot
mhm,
of them have criminal records and mental illness and they can't go
yeah.
work. Like nobody wants to hire them. So they're fairly useless as far as productivity. But I think there are low level jobs that they end up doing if you structure it in a way that they have, they kind of have to, or they are incentivized to do it.
Mhm.
Like a lot of these programs that are transitional require that they do cleanups in the city. And I think that that is one of the only things I can think of that is like a good solution, is to have them contribute in the minimal capacity that they can, because there's always going to be people who cannot be productive and have no one to take care of them, which
Mhm.
is also kind of the sad part of this, is that they don't have anybody. Like, because if I got like destitute, like I have a good relationship with my mom. I could just go
Mhm.
live with her. Like, even if I had like some very severe issues happen in my life, brain damage or something, I could go live with my mom. She loves me and has money and can help me. And these people have none of that. And it's
Yeah.
it's somewhat difficult to relate to. Um, and and yet they are, if you don't like them being on the streets and you don't actually want to kill them, or anyone else to, like, because I don't think people actually want that, um, then it's really just another sanitation problem, right? It's there.
Mhm.
Just get rid of free will. Don't they just, people don't have free will. They're just a um like a rogue piece of trash. And but I don't mean
Yeah, like a
you know what I'm
sentient
saying? Like
piece
it's
of
like a
garbage.
it's like a thing that you have to deal with. And you can either, ignore the trash and let it blow away, or you can have someone pick up the trash and help it get a job.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm trying to be more objective. Like,
Yeah.
it's not, it's like we're not going to get rid of them as far as never having them. And you could end up that way. It could, your mom dies from cancer, and you didn't get any inheritance because it cost too much for the cancer, and you lose your job because of this or that or whatever. Um, and you end up on the streets. And I think that that's something I'm sympathetic to. Now, I'm not particularly sympathetic to people hurting each other and stealing. I'm just not that sympathetic to it. Although I realize there are cases where that's
Yeah, I
kind of
mean, if you
all
have no
they can
choice
do.
and you
But there's a
haven't
difference
eaten,
between,
yeah.
yeah, there's a difference between like stealing some food and stealing like a fucking car, or stealing there's a certain like level at which you're just being a kind of asshole. And that's what's tough about homeless situations as well, is there's so many assholes in the mix that it's hard to like be sympathetic, because you're like, well, you can't tell the difference between the the straight up criminals who just look homeless and who are kind of like half in and out of housing, and the people who are genuinely like struggling and
Well, there's
in
actually a contingent of them that just enjoy being homeless. Like they like the freedom of not being tied down to a place. They don't have bills really. And so it's like they just, I mean, some of like, because we've helped people in our clinic where they're just like, no, I just enjoy being homeless. Like that's just all I know. It's how I know to live my life. And it's just, so it's like they're not really interested in getting assistance with like employment or housing. Like they just, they are just wanting to exist as, a transient person. And then you have a very large contingent that are drug addicts, basically, for one reason or another. And then but it's exciting for us when we get people coming to our clinic that are down and out for whatever reason, but they're wanting to take the steps to better their lives and get back into a stable situation. So it's like I enjoy helping people, and it's always nice to see people kind of turn things around, because we've had people come in who are homeless or maybe struggling with an addiction or alcoholism, but they want to get better. They recognize that they have a problem, and so we're able to, help them because they commit to their treatment. They come in, they do what they're supposed to do, they follow the correct steps and procedures to get on housing wait lists and get jobs. And it's always cool when we have people who come in rough shape, and then by the time they're done with us, they have a job and they've got into a Section 8 apartment, and have like some semblance of stability. But there's a lot of people who don't, they can't. A lot of it's honestly meth in this area is a big contributor to the homelessness. Like a lot of homeless people in this area are fucking wasted on meth, and so they just can't until they they can admit to themselves that they have a drug problem and seek treatment for it. It's like almost spinning wheels trying to get them help, because they just constantly ruin it with their own addictions.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of people are out there stealing and engage in certain crimes to get their meth. And so having small amounts of almost any drug on you is not illegal anymore. But those people don't have any money, so they can't go to a store and buy stuff, and they can't go to a drug dealer and buy stuff, so they have to steal to get all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And those people aren't being prosecuted either. And so there's just this like kind of rampant low level crime that isn't being dealt with, that makes the whole thing I don't know, fucking bad for everyone who doesn't want to commit crime and who
Yeah.
thinks that that stuff shouldn't be tolerated. um and then you like, we talked about how the hospitals get overrun, but the prisons get overrun, because we
Mm-hmm.
have, if you were to arrest all of these people and actually um take them to jail, you would have thousands of people who are criminals in jail, and there's no place for them there either. So,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have like bigger crimes, like gang related crimes and bigger robberies and gun violence and stuff like that in Portland too. So there's all this kind of there's just a milieu of like um chaos in the area. And I think people are looking to the government to try to fix these problems. And every big city, and I think Portland is really kind of struggling to deal with its size, because it's one of the smaller big cities in the world, whereas you have places like New York, which are fucking cesspools of this type of
Mm-hmm.
activity, and there's whole, you know large swaths. I mean, it really is kind of interesting if you go to other cities. Like you'll drive by one, alley that's just exactly looks like Portland. Like it's these types of problems are not
Unique
they're
to this
not
area.
unique. They're
Yeah.
not unique, but I think Portlanders are like starting to see what like some of the problems that arise from having this dense, massive, and highly liberal um community that these big cities end up being.
Mhm.
They end up being very like pro-social acceptance, because I think the alternative to that seems very harsh and draconian. And the governments in these big areas, they're, they get paid pretty well, and they can live in areas that are not so shitty. So they can just sort of take their time to deal with it in their own way that allows them to get reelected and is socially progressive. But on the streets, you have people shitting in the streets and doing drugs, and it's not comfortable. It's not like what we want when we think of modern life. We don't think
Mhm.
that all of this wealth also means that we have to live next to uh, hobos and insane people. Like, I know
Yeah.
that's not nice to say, but like that picture I showed,
No, a lot of them
people
are.
are, yeah, I mean, they're schizophrenic. They
Yeah.
legit are not in control of themselves, and they
Mhm.
do crazy shit. And they go up. There's ups and downs to that, where they're like, they just want to die, and then they fucking stay away from everybody, and then they get all fucking amped up with their, uh,
Man, they end up in like a manic state,
drugs
and
and manic
yeah.
stuff, and then they go out on the streets and they try to fucking, play Superman and fucking start telling you how they're fucking, Jesus and stuff, and you're like, oh, this
Yeah,
instability is hard to deal
I
with.
see it every day. There's just people, the guilt is, it's not uncommon just to see people walking in the streets just yelling
Yeah,
randomly at
just yelling,
nobody. Like they're
talking,
just yelling. There's
singing.
people who will just walk in the middle of the street, like thinking that it's funny, because cars gotta kind of swarm
Yeah.
around them so they
Oh
don't hit
yeah, all
them.
the
And
time.
it's just like, what? It's
Well,
just,
and a lot of people are drinking. I mean, I think we forget that, like,
yeah,
alcoholism
alcoholism's a
among this group, like we
huge.
talk about meth and stuff, which is like a kind of
Well,
extreme drug, but like
well, the meth
alcoholism
ones
is
are the
very
ones.
common.
Yeah, I think meth's so prevalent to me because the people on meth end up in the hospital,
Yeah,
from meth. And
sure.
so that's
Alcohol
the
is more
population that
tolerable.
we see the most of, is people coming in because they got hopped up on something. They don't know what it was cut with, and they feel like they're dying.
Well,
So
even if it's cut with nothing, it's still gonna. Well, it's
mhm,
always cut with something. Meth
yeah.
is. I mean, you might
But
as well.
and whereas like
Yeah.
alcoholism, like it's a much
Yeah.
more it's,
Tolerable.
I guess a little tall me, I'm a little more
Yeah.
tolerable. So people don't, I mean, you got to drink a lot of alcohol to get to a point where you need to go to the hospital. So
Yeah.
um yeah,
I.
so it's just like, for me, it's like meth just seems so much more in my face because it's what we
Yeah.
see coming through the
Well,
clinic
and a
more.
lot of places have methadone clinics, and if we added addiction um, as a solution, which costs lots of money to medicate these people in a way that is controllable, and these people came, they came to a facility, they were able to get food and shelter, and to help facilitate things, and we gave them controlled doses of methadone to treat their addiction, because they're not going to get off of it, then at least there's some amount of stability to that system. And I think
Mhm.
that's what we all want, is stability and predictability. And homelessness is the opposite of that. It's not stable, it's unpredictable, it's chaos. And most of us are going around in 9 to 5 jobs, metaphorically speaking,
Mhm.
and we rely on that. We need that stability to like plan our lives. And when we see these people, we see the worst in what we fear, we
Mhm.
for ourselves. Like
No, I
I'm
do
sure a
too.
lot of it
Like
is
when I
just
see them, I'm like,
projecting.
I don't think I would be able to handle being homeless. Like I need the stability and
Yeah.
the schedule. And it's like, yeah,
Well, and
it's
suicide, there's a lot of suicide.
mhm.
I was watching a thing about gun control, and statistically, the majority of gun deaths are from suicide.
Suicide. Yep.
And I think that's really a whole different topic. But um, you might be one of those people who don't commit suicide, Channing. If you get
No, but
homelessness,
I
if no,
honestly,
no,
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
like, do it, but don't do it just because you're
Do it if you
homeless.
feel like you have
Like,
to.
you could stay with me for like a week or two.
Oh,
It's
okay.
fine.
Thank you.
Like,
Well,
if you get
like you said, like I
divorced,
have places I could go. Like if
I know,
I,
isn't that interesting?
Vanessa divorced me and was like, get the fuck out. I mean, I have friends that I could stay with. I mean, I could fucking. My mom would
Like
probably
worst
help get me
case,
a
you go to your
ticket to go over
mom's.
to the
Yeah.
East Coast if I needed to stay with her. So, you know,
Yeah.
like
There's
I have
like
places to go,
backups,
but
but I think a lot of
um,
people don't have that.
yeah, but yeah, if I didn't have any of that, then I don't know. I would not be able to handle being homeless. Like I can't imagine just not knowing where I'm gonna go that day or what I'm gonna do. Like
You don't do
not, I
anything.
don't know where I'm gonna sleep, how I'm gonna sleep. Am I gonna get robbed? Because it happens all the time. We give clients tents and sleeping bags. Like we try to keep some on hand all the time. And I can't tell you how many times we'll give them one. And then the next time we see them like a week later, that they don't have them anymore because it was stolen from them by somebody else. And so it's, yeah, very volatile environment. And there are a lot of them that are trying to elevate themselves out of that situation. There are people who enjoy being in that situation. And then there are people who are so fucked up that they don't even know where the sky is. So,
Yeah. Yeah. It's
yeah.
interesting. It's definitely like you can have a human approach to it where you like appreciate all humans for their humanness and you want to help them even though they can't help themselves. And then there's the um more, I guess, selfish approach, or more like kind of um like why should we help them?
Yeah, I can
You
see
know,
both sides of that too.
like
It's like
fuck
I'm
them. Like
responsible for myself. Why am I
yeah.
responsible for you? I
Well,
mean, nobody's gonna take care of me. So get your
yeah,
shit together.
nobody's I don't take handouts. I don't take, I don't have food
Hmm.
stamps. I have to work. And the only reason they get to do anything, the only reason that they are not dead in the streets is because of the wealth that the working class provides. And I think there's a resentment that can come from that fact
I think
because
that,
it's
and I think
true.
there is a lot of it, especially um, like business owners who are dealing with vandalized, being vandalized or having, like restaurants deal with kind of like that picture that you showed. It's like you come into work to open up your restaurant and then the dumpster out back has got the garbage all over the fucking ground and you have to clean it up because it's your property. So it's
Makes
like,
you resentful. It makes
yep.
you angry. It makes you want to burn down these camps.
Hmm.
And I think that that's the consequence of homelessness as well, is unrest in
Hmm.
the general society, which is any chaos. Just like if you have a lion running around killing people, it creates a lot of unrest, and um, you kind of have to react to it in some way. And relying on the government is kind of the way that society deals with it. And
Well, it's just the
unfortunately,
society we've built is one that's
yeah,
government.
we've pushed the responsibility onto
Yeah.
them. And when it seems like they're not solving those problems, and you have to see it in your face, and you're like, you hate the government and you hate the homeless people
Well, and it's
slash
frustrating too
criminals.
for most average people because we're the people that are doing what we're supposed to do. We're the ones that are
We're not
working,
cheating.
contributing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like when you're dealing with people who are not doing any of those things and actually trashing places and, doing drugs that could endanger like your children or family. And, they're leaving behind these messes for nobody to clean up. Cause I mean, well, I guess the government to clean up technically, but it's the resentment just festers for sure.
Yeah.
um
And when you see crimes not being people not being punished for crimes, it makes you resentful of that as well. It's very interesting to like be sympathetic to the idea of survival, but also be unsympathetic to the idea of living like an outsider like that. It's very interesting. I'm like kind of curious what like the history of people dealing with homeless people and bums. And I'm guessing for the most part, it was very brutal. Like, I would imagine, like, when there was less government intervention and somebody came on your property panhandling, a lot of them probably got shot.
yeah,
You know what
or
I
at
mean?
least
Or
threatened.
I'm
Yeah.
thinking like Old West, or I'm thinking like, what did they do in the Roman times when there was just, it's probably they didn't do nothing. They didn't give a fuck, and they didn't have
Yeah.
social programs. And those people just,
Died.
got
Yeah.
stabbed by each other and got
Well, they
stabbed by the
probably
by the
stole until they got
the
caught and then they were
soldiers.
executed
Yeah, they were
or
probably executed
yeah.
all over the place,
Yeah.
and probably publicly. And I don't think that those um I think there's so much more that should be done before you start executing people.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I really think that's bad. I think that's a real failure of a system with so much wealth, and so much supposed morality and um, so much supposed compassion. Um, but I think that there's also a limit to how much working class people are willing to put up with, especially if they get on their property. Like, if you start,
Yeah, once people get on my
yeah,
property, I'm like, I'm not
isn't that change
interested. Like,
things?
I
It's so
just don't.
interesting.
Well,
There's a
I'm,
limit. There's a
I'm
limit to, and there's a consequence to your actions, and the consequence to your homelessness, whether you did anything about it or not, is people don't fucking like you.
I think generally, yeah. I think even though a lot of us don't want to admit it because it feels heartless, but I also just don't like many people generally. Like when I'm out walking on
I
my
know, right?
breaks, I have my headphones and I'm like, I don't want to be fucking
Yeah,
bothered by anybody. I don't care if you're homeless or not. Just don't bother me. I'm on my break. I'm
yeah,
listening to music or an audiobook or whatever. I'm entertaining myself, minding my own business. Don't fucking bother me. I don't care who you are unless I know you. And then you say, hey, how's it going? And I'll stop and chat with you for a second.
yeah. But I
But I
don't
don't care
know
if you're a
you.
fucking college student. I
Yeah,
don't care if you're homeless. Don't bother me. Like
yeah.
I already give 40 hours of my life every week to social programs based. Like I work in a clinic, a
Yeah.
behavioral health clinic, where my whole job is helping people get set up with resources and scheduling and providing all these things. Like that's my time that I'm dedicating to that. Outside of that, leave me the fuck alone. I just don't. I want to be alone and unbothered by strangers. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I look at it as I'm only interested in helping somebody as much as they're willing to help themselves. And that's like a valuable thing that I've learned a lot of working in behavioral health like the last 4 years is that you can't fucking help somebody if they don't want to help themselves. Like you
Yeah.
can't
They're
carry
just
them
going to
all the way
keep,
to the finish line. Like if
yeah.
they're not going to put as much effort or more effort in as we're willing to do it, then it's a failed attempt. Like it's not going to go anywhere. And it happens a lot where people come in for treatment and they just don't want to do it. They don't want to put the effort in to better themselves. It requires a lot of work and you have to be determined to put that work in. So I don't mind when a homeless person comes in and they're like, I really want to get a job. I want to try to get some housing. And then they actually follow through on the things that the case managers and therapists and other people are helping them to do. Like our job is to give you tools and resources, but you have to be the one to pull the trigger and follow through on them. We can't do it all for you. And we've had clients that they just fail because they don't want to put the effort in. And then they end up back out on the street and then they end up in the ED again from like a meth overdose or whatever. And then we try again. And most times it fails. I mean, honestly, the failure rate is far higher than the success rate.
Of course
Success
it
rate's
is.
pretty small because it's,
They wouldn't be in that position in the first
yeah.
place if they were successful.
And that's just the
Yeah.
harsh reality is that people, I think a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times when people are in that situation, it's because they just don't have, I don't know, like the gumption or the fucking drive to be better and to get themselves out of the situation. Now, there are cases where people are suffering from addiction or mental health illnesses that are untreated. And, I don't blame them as much, but,
So there's
if
like
you're
three categories.
there,
There's the
yeah, there
category
is.
of people who don't have free will. Essentially, we're saying that they're not responsible for themselves. They should be awarded the state and live in a home,
Mm-hmm.
and because they're mentally ill.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the people who are uh, intelligent enough to like realize and know who they are, and like they're stable enough that they can do minimal occupational things. They need occupational therapy, they need stable conditions, and they need help, but they can kind of get the ball rolling if they get that. And then we have people in the middle who we give free will to, but will not fall in line.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, they will continue to um, you know, they won't try, they'll keep doing drugs, they'll keep doing all this stuff, but they
And that's the
know that
biggest.
they shouldn't, and they know that they could do other things.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do with those people? Because I think we could solve the other two problems. One is a a facility, and one is a program.
Mm-hmm.
And these other people, should they be put in jail for the rest of their lives?
I
Because
think
they're
I guess it depends
criminals.
on at that point the severity of their crimes. But I mean, that middle group is
But
the
you let them
hardest
out,
one,
and
right?
then
Because
they just keep doing it.
and a lot of times that middle group is usually drug addicts or alcoholics because that's the thing that's derailed them. Like when they're sober, they could be in the group that
Sure.
has the potential for success. But the problem is they can't escape that addiction problem that just keeps putting them back in the same position. And so it's like that is the toughest group. And that's the group that you really have to rely on to want the help. They have to be willing to have the willpower.
They aren't in that group. They don't want it. What do you do?
I mean, you
It's
just
a
wait for
fucking
them to
problem.
die. I mean, as fucked up as that's like, there are
You just
some
keep pushing
clients,
them. You just keep pushing them out. You keep
Like-
putting them in jail, letting them out,
Mhm.
stopping them from coming in your business. You keep dealing with them. You just
Well, they're
hope
the
that they don't
clients
do anything horrible.
within the hospital setting. That's the group that is in the ED once or twice
Yeah.
a month, or even maybe once a week. Who fucking knows, because of whatever shit that they're putting in their body. And they're the group that you continue to offer services to them. They don't follow through with them.
And
then they keep coming back, and you literally get to a point where you hear nurses and doctors just saying, I don't like, we're just, they're gonna end up dead. Like, we're just like, if they keep doing what they're doing, they're just gonna die, like that, period. Because
they'll OD,
I've actually listened, I've heard therapists like straight up tell clients, like,
if you don't do
you're
this,
gonna be
you're gonna
dead
die
before the end of the year if you keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because
and they probably don't care.
And it's like they're just a prison of their addiction, so much so that they can't fucking break the binds, man. And that's the hardest group, is that one in the middle, because sometimes it feels hopeless. Like, you get jaded and you're like, there's nothing I can fucking do for this person. They're just a total detriment to themselves, and they aren't willing to put any effort in to change it. And those are the toughest ones in there. And like I said, that's why we have, I feel like, such a high failure rate in comparison to success, because that group of people that they're there because they want the help and they're ready to do the work is so small compared to that. Most people fall in that middle group where they're caught in this vicious fucking circle that they can't get out of, and all we can do is offer help for them, and most of them, they take it, or they just don't follow through on any appointments, or they just don't show up ever again until they're in the hospital. And then that other bracket of people, that have like severe mental illness to the point where like maybe they need to be at the state hospital or in a home, is actually pretty small, because a lot of people have mental illnesses, but it's stuff that, like, if they got treatment and they followed through with their psychiatric medication, they would actually balance out and kind of fit into that category of success. It's just tough to get some of those people to realize that the medication takes time to work. And I think that's the thing with like meth and a lot of these other drugs. It's a very immediate reaction. Whereas with psychiatric medication, you have to take it for a while. Sometimes you have to try a couple different ones to find the one that works. And you have to build up. Yeah. And so it's,
well, you have to also have to change your behavior. You have to like start taking care of yourself. You have to start doing things that are not
you have to engage
natural for you
in therapy and other things. Like, some people think that they're just going to get a magic pill that's going to solve their problems. Like, no, the pills help balance your chemicals, but you also need to engage in these, therapy and case management and the other programs to also complement it. Otherwise, you can't just take pills and then be happy. It doesn't work that way.
Speaking of pills, I have two proposals for solutions.
No, okay. Let's hear them.
Neither of them are pills. One is psychedelics. Just because why not? It's magic, right? You just
stick the middle group in the forest, give them a bunch of mushrooms, and
exactly. You just get them to like have epiphany after epiphany with ayahuasca and mushrooms and LSD, and you start to figure out ways to regrow their mental processes, and you fix them with high levels of faith-based fucking mushroom therapy,
and then give them a bunch of weapons and then tell them, hey, it's Hunger Games, good luck.
Yeah, you say, oh, the world's gone and you have to survive, bye, I gotta go on my plane. Have you seen The Road? That's happening now, go, bye. And then they just eat mushrooms. I actually do think mushrooms are helpful for a lot of situations, but for therapeutic purposes, because I think a lot of mental illness and such comes from trauma, and I think that mushrooms seem to be helpful for trauma.
Yeah, so the therapists I work with were talking about that, how, like, because some places are actually starting to look at that as like a viable therapy solution. Problem is, a lot of insurance companies aren't going to acknowledge that that's
it hasn't been studied enough.
Exactly. So it's like,
but they are going
to be one of those things that, guess what,
only
wealthy people are going to be able to experiment with, because they're going to be the only ones that can afford to pay out of pocket for these experimental psychedelic controlled
Well,
environment types of
yeah.
tests and treatments,
Well, and they've been doing it with military. So if
Mm.
the government puts money into that, they should be able to get it to the rest of us eventually. Um, so the other thing is to prevent mental illness and trauma at the beginning. So
Yeah.
better family systems, incentives for families to not just be having kids all the time and to have kids in stable situations, single parenthood, get
Well,
rid
that's
of
what I meant
that.
by taking it back to its root cause earlier. It's like
Yeah, let's do
everything
that.
starts at birth. So it's like you got to go all the way back to the beginning and try to figure out where things are going wrong in these populations and why they end up where they are. And a lot of it's probably unstable home lives.
Genetics,
Yeah.
genetics.
Yeah.
Let's start to work with understanding genetics and understanding how that can lead toward pre um, dispositions, what is it called, where you're like predisposed to an issue, but like you need a catalyst to make it happen. Like some people are predisposed to schizophrenia, but like nothing happens in their 20,
Mm-hmm.
in their first 20 years, and so they don't become schizophrenic, whereas one of the another person has the same issue but then they get beat and so they become schizophrenic. There's like
Oh yeah, brain trauma, man. It can
genetic
do all kinds of shit to you, especially when you're young and
yeah,
you're developing.
yep, trauma,
Um,
neglect, all that stuff.
a lot of a good percentage of like serial killers
Yeah,
all
we're all
suffered some sort of head trauma when they were in their adolescence. Like that's
sure.
a
And
common thread for a
it
lot of
gets
them.
rid of their the like centers of the brain that
Mhm.
create inhibition toward action. um yeah, it's really really interesting, and I think that if people were we could somehow just like make sure people have kids that should have kids. Not that
I
they
I know
that'll
it's
ever
like
happen.
a
It's never going to happen. But
it's never gonna happen, but I believe in that so much. Like I feel like there should be. I mean, and it's gonna be fucked up for some people. I feel like you should be able to prove that you have the means to raise a child, like financially. And I feel like there are like parenting courses and therapy sessions that you should have to attend as a requirement to find out
like a
if you're even
license.
capable of yeah, like if you're even capable of of raising a child, like to be somewhat productive member of society. Like we require people to get licenses and things for all these other things from life. It's like why like
Why?
creating life and putting it
Yeah.
into society is one of the biggest things that anybody can do as
Why
far as
isn't
affecting
why
the
isn't
world.
like parenting a every year class in school?
Mm-hmm.
Like every like you don't get through school without a very large education based on parenting.
Yeah.
Like everything from sex to therapy to trauma to effects to finances. Why, like, this, fuck all the rest of like adult like just gear it all toward like educating people on what it is to be a good parent.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't they teach that in
I don't know.
education?
I feel like they sort of breeze around it with like home economics because
That's not
I did a home
parenting.
ec class in seventh grade, and like one of the segments was where you had to have the fucking baby with you that you had to like share with
Oh, was it
another
like that?
classmate. But it all it was just you dealing with a baby.
That's like a
It was
that's
more
like
of
a
a scare
day or a
tactic
week
to
or
keep
something.
you. Yeah, it was just like a week of dealing with a baby, and I felt like it was more of a scare tactic to keep you from getting somebody fucking knocked up at a young age because they're like, oh, look how fucking annoying this baby is. Um, but I think that I wish that they taught more like practical life skills in school, which could be like a whole other topic. Like there should be more of a focus on finances, what the fuck a credit interest rate is, like
I don't get why,
how do you buy a house? How do you buy a
because
car? What does that
obviously
mean?
parents aren't doing this. They're
Yeah,
like this, all this stuff that we're talking about, they're not educating their kids because
you
it's
just learn it as
complicated,
you go.
because you don't
Like,
know, because you weren't educated. So it's
uh-huh.
just this ignorance manifest in society. It's
Hmm.
like um there's like knowledge in the world about what makes society better, and an educated democratic society can improve, I guess. Maybe not.
There's a pretty large swath of people in our democratic society that are not very well educated, and that's kind of the problem.
But even the
I mean, I don't want to
well-educated
point
people
fingers at the
argue.
Christians or anything, but
Yeah, but like there are some, you know, there are scientists on all sides, and there's intelligent people on all sides. We're just very we're just become set in our
Well,
ways.
in my that is part of it, but
And
like in
we're,
my experience, it seems to be like the more conservative religious people are the ones that have problems with what's being taught to children in school. So that's why it's like having a program like that, you'd
oh
probably have
yeah,
all these
sure.
people up in arms and they'd be like, what are you teaching my kids? Like, you shouldn't be teaching my kids about parenting, blah, blah, blah. That's from, they're the same people that
I'm
are going
sure
to be
that's
upset about
true.
sex education in school. So it's like
Yeah. But
it,
fuck them.
that population is sort of what holds us back
Fuck them
from
in the
like these
butt.
more liberal, I guess, programs that were not necessarily liberal, but more experimental programs. And like, how can we better prepare children
Yeah.
for the future? Because we just assume that parents are doing that, and a lot of them aren't. A lot of them are failing miserably, and that's why we have, as many problems in our society as we do with homelessness and addiction. It's because a lot of people, unfortunately, are raised in shitty households with parents that probably didn't even want to fucking have kids, and they just were irresponsible, and now they're stuck with them. But yeah,
Well,
I
and it's
wish
so
that there was like a
expensive and all this
way.
stuff. Yeah.
I wish there was
So
a way for
interesting.
people to like prove that they were capable of raising a child financially, emotionally, mentally, like the whole gamut. But I don't know how that system would be something you would have to implement at the beginning of a society. And like it'd have to be a pillar, like a
Well,
foundational pillar of how your
it's too
society worked.
authoritarian.
Yeah,
It's
that's the
too
thing too, is it's
totalitarian. That's,
very it's
eugenics
very
is a
totalitarian, which
scary
is a
concept.
dangerous
So
thing.
yeah, it's so weird. It's so weird to think of a solution that's like
That's well,
massively
because
dictatorial.
the problem,
Like
like the thing with
that's what everyone
America is
does.
that everybody has freedom. So they have the freedom to do a lot of what they want to do. And unfortunately,
But I don't have the freedom to burn down a homeless camp.
well, it's because you're hurting people. Though. I mean, that's like potentially genocide if the people don't wake up because they're
But if you have a
whacked
kid
out on
who
meth.
you shouldn't have, aren't you hurting people?
Yeah.
Is it, but they don't, there's not a direct relationship between parent and child responsibility.
No, there's
Like the
not.
parent is only responsible to a very certain degree and then it's done.
Mm-hmm.
Like what if your parents were responsible for everything you do for your whole life? So if you
That
go to jail, your parents go to jail.
that would be nuts, dude.
Right? I've never thought of that before. I'm making that up. It's horrible, but I'm just curious.
Then I
Like,
would be
what a
so
weird
glad. I
society.
would be even more glad that I elected not to have children because I'd be like, oh God, I don't have to worry about
See, that would give you an
them
incentive
growing up
not
to
to
be a
have children,
fuck up.
but it also give you like incentive to like be overly controlling of
That's
your
what would
child,
happen is
which would be
people, you think
terrible.
that some parents are
Yeah.
overprotective now. That
But
would be,
what if you learned that if you hit your kid, they're more likely to be criminal? You could never hit your kid.
but I feel like
You'd have
that's
to come
already
up with
been
a
proven
song.
and people still don't fucking believe. Like
No,
they
I
just
don't
keep
think
hitting
people know
kids.
that at all. I think that we happen to know that, and you always think that people know what you know. I don't think people believe that at all. Just like they don't believe that wearing masks is a good idea. They don't believe that like
No, they just
parents have a
perpetuate what was
major
done to
role.
them. They're like, oh, my parents hit me and
And
I'm
I turned out
fine.
good.
Yeah. And so I'm
I
gonna
have a
beat the
job.
shit out
I'm
of this kid.
productive.
I just
And
I
for the
was
most
gonna
part,
like,
everybody is like kind of okay.
and
It's just not ideal.
it's hard to talk to parents about that because then you're like criticizing their parenting, right? Because I mean, I've been around people who it's like they're hitting their children when the kid's not listening, and I just want to be like, why are you hitting your kid? Why are you
I
teaching
think
your
that's very
child that
difficult to be around.
that like when somebody's
Triggers
not
me.
doing the thing you want them to do, you just physically hit them? Like that's the message that's coming across to your small child right now, is that when somebody does something that you don't like or they're not listening to you, you hit them until they fall in line. Like that's literally I don't, it's weird to me that parents don't understand that that's the through line right there. I don't know, that's just what was
I
done to
think it's
them.
just
So
old fashioned.
yeah,
It's not old fashioned necessarily from a sociological reason, but old fashioned in a instinctual fashion. Like it's lizard brain
yeah.
monkey shit.
Well, and I think parents too, it's just like your primal
It's
instinct, right? You're
instinctual.
just like, I'm gonna fucking hit you
You're
because you're not
frustrated.
fucking, yeah, you're driving me nuts right now.
What do you do when
Um,
your car starts to fuck up? You fucking hit it. You yell
yeah.
it. You scream at it. You do the same thing with all sorts of things.
Hmm.
It's emotional immaturity,
Yep.
I think,
But it just
because it's
scares me
tough
when it
not
comes to
to.
like, I mean, I can't even hit my dogs because all I think about, I'm like, what the What's the dog learning right now? It's just learning to be afraid of me right now. It's learning, oh, you can hurt me physically and I'm not going to do anything against you, even though I have fucking fangs and could rip your throat out while you slept. But
It's tough with a dog too because of communication issues. People have
yeah.
to be very clever to communicate with dogs in a way that doesn't revolve around physical exertions like
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. I if I get another dog, which I plan to do, I plan on really studying positive reinforcement because I use a lot of, or I used more physical bullying with my previous
Mhm.
dog than I am proud of. And so I want to learn better how to use primarily and exclusively positive reinforcement with the dog, which I think is totally the best route. And I think it's also very difficult.
Yeah.
I think that it
I
takes
think it's
so
more
much
work.
commitment and
Yeah.
so much regularity that you just have to do it so over and over and over and over and over.
But I mean,
And I
just
think, but the
but the
reward,
end
I think
result is so
yeah,
much better.
I
Like the
think that you
dog's
get a
gonna,
very good dog out of it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd have a dog that, would be
Respects
very
you.
friendly to people because it's not abused, and it would probably listen because all it knows is good things. Like, hey, if I do this thing, I'm gonna,
Just
they thrive the
reinforce
attention,
all the
but
good stuff.
it is much more work,
Yeah.
because it's easier, when you're training a dog to punish it when it goes, when it pisses in the house. So you rub its fucking face in it and you beat it and you throw it outside. Like that's what my dad did. That's how he's like, that's how you housebreak them.
Yeah.
They learn that when they piss in the house,
Well,
that's what
and
happens.
with dogs, because they aren't people, it works. It literally they won't do it again.
Yeah,
It's the
but it's a
but the
horrible
result
way
is
to
not
train them.
great.
Yeah.
I don't like it's the ends justify the means, and I don't think I don't think that's a good moral philosophy.
Yeah, I just but in reality, how you housebreak a dog is, when they're puppies, you take them out after they wake
All
up
the
from a
time.
nap, you
Yeah,
take them out after they're
regularly.
done
Yeah.
drinking or
And you give them
eating,
a
you take
reward
them
when they
out.
pee outside, and
Yep,
you
yeah,
just
like
do
you
that
just have to
constantly.
keep doing it, but it's a lot of effort.
You
But
know what I found is that if you actually leave the puppies with the parents will train the puppies. So like when I got my dog, it was already housebroken because it had lived with its parents for long
mhm,
enough to just do whatever the other dogs were doing.
yeah,
And the other dogs were housebroken. So they would go out when they went out and they would all kind of share that kind of thing. So we didn't
mhm,
have to housebreak it. It just sort
yeah.
of knew go to the door.
That's how Dizzy
And
was. She was already, and she
yeah.
needed like a little bit of, touch up
Yeah,
training, but she
it's
was
like
pretty much set. But
a week.
Reese was like a 2 month and we
Oh,
thought he would
see.
learn fast because he was with Dizzy. Like we figured
Yeah.
he would follow her, but
Yeah.
he
So
didn't. And we
interesting.
had to train him with, by letting him out constantly. And then we had
Mhm.
puppy pads. Like
Yeah.
wherever he went potty in the house, we would stick a puppy pad. And what we did is we ended up slowly getting the puppy pad over to the door whenever he had, because if he had an
Oh,
accident, or if he had to go and we didn't get him out, he would go to the puppy pad and use it. So we just slowly moved the puppy pad to the door, and
so
eventually he
now,
was going to
yeah.
the door, and
So
then he would just go out.
you're helping the dog
Mhm.
communicate with you. It
Yeah,
needs to know how to communicate, which is go by the door, so
yeah.
you can let it out. It's
And
so
so
interesting.
it took him way longer, but he got it eventually. It was frustrating, and luckily we had a hardwood floor, so it was
Yeah. See, and that's another
detrimental,
concept.
but
Yeah.
um
Like you got to think ahead if you want to be, I don't know, super pretentiously fucking moral.
I
I
just
don't
learned
know.
so we learned so much raising
You're so
Dizzy
much
that
better.
like all they were all lessons we were able to apply to him. And so
Yeah.
he got the much better training because I knew
Yeah.
way more what I was doing and what not to do. And
Yeah.
so I feel bad for Dizzy. She was sort of the experiment and it went okay, but
Yeah. Well, and that's part of life too, is that
yeah,
as much preparation you can jam in your butthole, you can't predict the unpredictable.
nope.
And you don't, you know,
Well, and there's always a lot of other
there's
factors,
always
especially with dogs, just
chaos.
temperaments and genetics,
Yeah.
predispositions.
And
I
you,
mean, there's all
yeah,
sorts of shit that
all
goes
sorts of
into it. No
stuff.
one dog or no two dogs are going to be alike, even if they're the same breed and age.
Yeah.
Like they're going to have different
And
personalities.
you can be a shitty parent and have a good kid, and you can be a good parent and have a bad kid.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you shouldn't try.
You
So
should try the
we
most.
we should probably call it.
Oh, okay.
We're almost at 2 hours.
Well, I do have a recommendation I want to get real
Good.
quick.
Yes, do
Won't
it.
spend a lot of time with it. But speaking of dogs, I watched this movie. You might have, I don't know if you've already watched it because it is on Netflix and it's been fairly popular. And I finally sat down and watched it this weekend. It was between this movie or The Harder They Fall, and because I was going to start watching The Harder They Fall because I still haven't gotten to it. But then I saw The Power of the Dog, and I was like,
Mm,
I do want to watch that too. So I went with Power of the Dog because Vanessa was still asleep at the time, and I figured she would want to watch The Harder They Fall. So I was like, I'll watch Power of the Dog. she's not a big Western person, so usually those kinds of movies I watch just by myself on my own. Um, but I feel like The Harder They Fall, she's more interested in that one. Anyway, so I watched The Power of the Dog, and she actually ended up coming out and watching like the last 2/3 of it with me. But it is a very interesting movie. It's very good, but it's a slow burn, and it's not your typical Western. I mean, it's like Western. It takes place in 1925. It's about ranchers. But you know, it's not like a Western in the traditional sense that there's like shootouts and like all this stuff. It's about these two brothers who run a ranch. One brother falls in love with a woman, and her and her son move to their ranch with them. And the other brother, who's the older one, um, is first sort of portrayed as like a bully who doesn't want them there, and he's an asshole. He's like a really toxic, masculine, like cowboy, a manly man. He doesn't bathe. He does everything with his bare hands. He doesn't, yeah. And so there's like this adversarial relationship between him and then his brother's wife and son. And the son is like an eccentric, like young man who's training to be a surgeon. So he is like totally at odds with like this idyllic manly man. Um, anyway, but the movie becomes like something else completely. It starts off like that, like this adversarial and like uncomfortable situations, because like every time the movie has a lot of like awkward silences in it, in these really uncomfortable conversations, and like um sort of conflict heavy moments, like where like one person's really trying to get a rise out of other people and intentionally push them out of his house. um but anyway, and I don't want to like ruin sort of what happens in the movie, but the movie does become something else. And it's like 2 hours. It's a slow burn, but it's really good. Like performances are incredible. The story is very fascinating. And like the
Yeah.
whole time you're watching it, you're trying to like figure out where this is going. You're like, what? This is headed somewhere, but I don't know where it's headed. And it has a beautiful score. It's one of those soundtracks that I actually was listening to this morning when I was working out. It's just a very somber, and beautiful soundtrack as well. But it's interesting because when you watch the trailer on Netflix, it almost seems like it's going to be like a horror movie or else like a psychological thriller or something. They sold it in a very weird way where it's not that necessarily. I don't know. It's a fascinating movie. And I want to read the novel now because it's based off of a novel by Thomas Savage, and I think he wrote in like 1968 or something. It's been around a while. But you should definitely watch it. I think you'd like it a lot. Like, because I know you like the Western setting, but then there's just like this extra layer to it of very interesting, like broken people and their relationships and all this. But it's fantastic. It's on Netflix though, if people want to watch it. It just came out not too long ago, like a week or two back, I think.
I'll definitely watch it. It's got a
Benedict Cumberbatch, yeah, and he does a great job. He plays the kind of magnetic, cruel older brother in the movie, and he does a fantastic job.
Yeah,
so.
The commercials are very like, why would I possibly watch this horrifying movie?
Yeah,
like it looks like really like dysfunctional people, and I assume he's going to murder and rape everybody. So
that's what I mean.
Why
like,
would I watch
there's a
this?
lot, yeah, exactly. But it definitely goes
the same with the trailer for The Harder They Fall. It was like, who's picking these fucking moments out of the movie? They're terrible. They don't give you any idea of what's actually going to happen. I think they do that partly to not give away anything, but like a good trailer entices you to watch it. Like, I don't know.
Well, the Power of the Dog trailer like enticed me to watch it. It just set my expectations in a different place than what the movie actually delivers. Like it seemed like it was going to be a much more like mean kind of movie, but it ends up being a much more like meditative and almost kind of somber film. And it kind of it sits with you after you're done watching. Like after the credits rolled, I was like, fuck, man, like that was like an experience, and I was not expecting it to go the places it went.
And you immediately watched porn with weird dicks.
Right, with the weird hooked dicks. Well, what's interesting is I after I finished the movie, and Vanessa and I were talking about how it ended. I'm like, oh, actually, they sort of allude to it a little bit in the beginning, and I didn't notice it. So then I went back and played the beginning of the movie, and I was like, the beginning of this movie has a totally different meaning now that I've seen like the whole thing. It's very interesting.
Hmm.
So you should definitely watch it. I'll be curious
I
to
will.
hear what
I just have to be
think
in the
about it.
mood for a long, somber movie.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Which will
It's
take
like
a
a
while.
2 hour. It's not really like that somber, and it's not like overly depressing, but it's
Mhm.
also not exciting. It's a it's a very slow burning movie. Like, so you got to kind of be ready to like sit and just sort of almost be chill for a couple hours and just let it unfold. But it's like I said, everybody's performances are really good. And you're kind of hooked by just the conversations. Like, it doesn't feel like a 2 hour movie.
It makes me think of other westerns like The Assassination of Jesse James, which is more like a novel
Mhm.
movie, and The Homesman, which is
The
very like
Homesman was really good, but
practical and depressing,
mhm.
and but really compelling.
I
Or
remember you and
even
I just watching that at your house. Like, we
oh,
just
did we
threw it
watch that
on, and then,
together?
yeah,
Yeah,
we
it was
watched it
so
together, and
like
we were like, let's
enthralling.
watch it. And then
Yeah,
it ended up being like this sort of enthralling, interesting
yeah,
movie.
very different.
Mhm.
Like you're like, this is definitely based on a book because like there's no moviness about it. It's like
Yeah.
too thoughtful to just be a movie. And then There Will Be Blood, another one that's like a novel. Like
Hmm.
you're watching it, but it's not. It doesn't have the beats of a movie like that you're
No,
used to.
yeah.
It's
That's
more
what's so
like
fun
a slow thing.
when they adapt a novel and they like stick pretty
Yeah,
faithful to the novels. It's like, yeah, you get a not like a Hollywood feeling movie. You
yeah,
get
I love that.
definitely something that felt like it originated elsewhere. But what's
Nice. I
your
love a good
recommendation?
western. My recommendation is School of Chocolate on Netflix as
Oh, I
well.
saw a little advertisement for that when I was perusing.
If you're into the Great British Baking Show, which I am a very big fan of.
Of course you are.
And it just finished. The finale just came out for that show, as well as the Christmas special for that show. So I watched those. And then I just picked a random show to watch that Netflix offered. And normally I don't like cooking shows. I just most of them are kind of boring and cookie cutter, and they're not about the people, they're about the competition.
Mhm.
And I like the British one because it's about the people. But the School of Chocolate is so different, and it was so interesting and engaging. Um, and it's a competition, but it's not like any other competition, and it's more like a combination of a competition and a master class. And so you have this guy who is a master chocolate and pastry chef, and he is incredible. If you watch the preview for it, he's like does sculptures with chocolate that are literally no one else in the world can do.
Mhm.
And he has these like 6 people or 8 people, and he genuinely teaches them something every episode, and then they compete, and then he has like top of the class and lower part of the class, and then at the end the top of the class can win a prize, but they don't ever kick anybody out, and he'll like take somebody who's struggling and like help them learn. It's crazy. But it's you also get to know a lot of the character or the real people. They're not
Mhm.
characters, these real people. And you just get to really like appreciate this whole group of people and what they're doing, and how skilled they are, and how they're learning and struggling and getting along with each other, or not. Like there's actually some kind of infighting that can happen in it as well. But I was just impressed. I watched like the whole thing in like 2 days, and it was like, I don't know, like
Hmm.
6 or 8 episodes or something. It's not super long, but it's visually stunning, and really, really fun to watch. So I recommend that.
Oh, cool.
Perfect.
All right.
So that'll do it.
All
And
right.
send us an email to fleeting thoughts podcast at gmail.com. Go to the website, fleeting thoughts podcast at .com land, or joesnotesblog.com. I forgot that they don't have an at in them. You know what to do. Do that. And we'll talk to you next time. Peace out.
Deuces.
Vatos locos. Eat tacos and shit.